Hey, what's up? My name's Afton, and if you're anything like me, you love the accessibility and the portability of making digital artwork. However, it can still have that flat look to it when you're done, and you want your illustrations to have a bit more character. I feel like a lot of times, we try to look up free textures or free overlays on the internet, however, they're either not that good quality, or we just end up using the same ones over and over again. Today, I'm gonna show you how to create your own digital textures using traditional artwork. So our first method is actually going to be using paper and paper texture. So I went through and found some paper textures that I already enjoyed, such as some linen oil paper, some drawing paper, and then next I took a sheet of copy paper and just crumpled it up. The more crumpling you do, the more shadows and highlights that the scanner will be able to pick up. So then I also did another variation of crumpled paper and crumpled it a little less and did a hot dog hamburger fold to make it look like a poster. And I swear this whole video will not be me just crumpling paper. Next, we will be working with dry media, so stuff such as pastels, graphite, you name it. So I took these soft pastels and just kind of rubbed them in different ways. So I also turned it into a powder and just kind of banged it on the table to see if it would create little speckles. In retrospect, I would recommend getting a different sheet of paper instead of doing it on the same one you've already done, just because it kind of smeared a little bit. Alright, our last and final one is going to be wet media. And I know it may seem that I'm breezing through all of these really quickly. However, it doesn't take a lot to make really cool textures, honestly. Like, if you just devote like 30 minutes and don't mind getting some clothes messy, then you can make some pretty cool stuff. But with the wet media, what's really fun about it is that you can play around with using different materials as stamps. So for instance, I actually spilled this little glass jar on my table into the paint, and I was like, well, might as well just use it as a stamp roller. So just kind of rolled it on the paper, see what happens. You can do the classic speckly star technique that you always see on Pinterest, and you can use different brushes that you have, like palette knives or fan brushes. I've even seen people use like fruit, like if you cut up an apple and turn it into a stamp. This whole process is really about just experimenting with all the different ways that you can do wacky stuff with the materials that you have. Okay guys, so now that you've made your texture library, let's go scan it in and then edit them. And if you don't have a scanner, don't worry, you can use your phone or any other cameras that you have. Welcome to my editing workspace. I use Lightroom because I go to school and I gotta milk my Adobe Creative Cloud subscription for all that it's worth. But if you do not have access to the Adobe stuff, don't worry. Just any basic editing app like PixArt or Visco should work well. You just need to be able to play with exposure and then your whites and your blacks in the image. So I just up the exposure a bit more and make my whites wider and my darks darker. And I mean, it does depend on how strong you want your texture to be, because if you want it to be a bit more subtle, you can actually lighten up those black areas. And then of course just crop out any parts of your image that are not the texture. If you decided to take photos of your textures instead of scanning them in, you might have the issue where there are some areas that are lighter or darker than others, and the easy way to fix this is just to go in with a brush tool, brush over any lighter or darker areas, and just mess with the exposure. So if it's too dark, up the exposure, and if it is too bright, just decrease the exposure. So one way that I go about making digital art is just going through with the Studio Brush or Technical Pencil on Procreate and putting down all of my flat colors. I just add the textures on another layer and play with the different blending modes. So usually I think multiply works pretty well.
Feeling the hours, feeling the rhythm of the moments passing by. Can you hear the music? Can you hear the beat? Can you hear the passion of the fever at your feet? Light of the night, heat of the day. You control it all and make the darkness melt away. Sparks fly when I'm looking back at you. Shots fired, do you feel the same thing?
helped you out, or you just enjoyed watching me make a mess and chat, please make sure to like and subscribe. I make videos about art, fashion, and life/vlog stuff. If you do end up using any of these, make sure to tag me on Instagram at afton.lin or at affydraws. And make sure to leave a comment about what method you want to try out the most.
Tidal wave that keeps you safe and sound. Can you feel the magic? Can you feel the touch? Can you feel the holy universal burst of love? Falling into gravity, I'm living in your galaxy. You don't think you're made of stars, but to me, that's what